All right, let's work through some of the questions that you may have captured on.
I made some progress. I read from 30 to like 38. Just that was a better stopping point.
Okay.
But I do have a question from our last kind of segment of readings on page 29. It says conclusion. The main parameter of success among the animals and people as well is the ratio, and most important, the quality of the two types of mobilized attention. And that just posed a question for me, like why, I guess from a physical standpoint, I understand the examples of why environmental mobilization is important for, say, someone in the wild. So my question is, isn't objective mobilization of your intention more important than, say, the environmental outside of like a primalistic kind of environment, kind of in our civilized environment? Wouldn't an objective-based attention be more important?
Yeah, well, that's a good question. I think this is from the section on question for your personality. Are the prospects of competitiveness and success important? If so, this is the conclusion when Master HORA talks about parameters of success and managing the ratio between environmental and objective attention. You and I, just like anyone who's living around us, for example, you look at the animal kingdom, if you're not paying attention, if you're a deer or a bull or whatever it is, wild buffalo, you don't pay attention enough, you'll get attacked by lions, hyenas, and so on. So for them, environmental attention is very critical for survival. And they also have a direct attention when objective attention when they eat, when they engage with their own species. So for them, environmental attention, having that senses out is critical for survival. For a
Right.
cheetah, a lion, they are when they hunt, they start going more into direct attention because for them it's that object they need to figure out the right moment when to pounce, when to jump, right? So everything becomes about that object, that wild beast. And so as they move close, their environmental senses tend to kind of get reduced. So they can only focus on one thing to make the right decision in the right time. Otherwise, their environmental stimuli will distract them. In our world, depending what you do, you also depend on environmental and object-oriented attention. I'll give you an example based on intellectual work that we typically do, like when we study. When we study an object, and let's say you studied mechanical engineering, you are focused on resolving a particular challenge that you may have with an object or a process. And that's where your mind goes. Yet, in the big picture, you have abstract thinking. And abstract thinking, it's also a concept of environmental attention, where you, in your mind, have a vision what this part needs to be doing, where it needs to go, how it's going to function over time, and maybe over different environments, hot, cold, wet, dry, right? Across time dimension. That's environmental attention. So
Okay.
as you design stuff, as you create, as you study, when you read stuff, your imagination activates and it can go into specific zoom in, deep dive, or it could go across time.
Mm.
So when I used to do financial models, I never wrote a financial model. I wrote like an epic, like a music. I was looking at numbers and cells and tabs as a total interrelationship of what we want to achieve, how it needs to flow, where should we have peaks and valleys, and how dynamic it should be. So it gave me a level of competitive advantage when it came to financial modeling, because I was not doing a two-dimensional balance sheet or income statement. I was working across time period and different environmental stresses, whatever we were modeling at that point, price change, interest change. That gave me environmental mindset and objective mindset when it's time for me to do the code. So that's an example of environmental attention, ability to move out as a human, right, from an object that you're focusing on to connecting the dots. We're talking about modern human who's working at, I don't know, creative industry, service industry, consulting industry, whatever it's like, service industry, or even manufacturing is the same thing. So
Interesting. Yeah, no, I did not see that in that light.
Yeah, so environmental attention and the ratio of it is the success, is how fast you can switch from big picture to a smaller details. In a prairie, right, in a wild, it's the same thing, like a cheetah is hunting. It has to switch, it has to look at the environment and see the playing field, saying, where are these wild beasts are? Where are my cheetah brothers? Because they hunt and pack. Where is my tree? And so on, to start looking at a path. But eventually they zero in to get to an objective. So our competitive advantage is how fast we can go from big to small without exhausting ourselves. Inexhaustibility comes from this concept where you can redirect your level of attention per need without being tired, exhausted, or drained.
Yeah, that was a perfect example.
Yeah.
And that process is like, as it said later on, is just having almost the physical qualities, is just like anchoring from your center of gravity, concentration of attention within the laws of nature. Having all those at the same time is kind of how you're able to train that aspect of zooming out, zooming in.
So practice HORA brings in a method that trains your ability to mobilize those two types of attention at a different investment. An ability to direct it, mingle with it, move, and pivot into direction. Attention is not an abstract concept. Attention requires resources. Your state of physical structure, your state of emotional structure, and your state of mind, your state of intellect. Your attention is an outcome of your structure, intellect, right, and emotional state. How long you can keep it. This is where a lot of things come in. Fear, bravery. Those are two opposite states. A body that is tired, that, for example, hasn't slept enough. The mind is also gets tired. A mind that's been distracted because it cannot have a direct vision where a person is going, right? All of these states at three concepts, three critical points, they are important for attention. So practice HORA helps you train and stabilize those centers of power and help you to align it. It's a different entrance into mobilization. It's no longer mobilization by nature if you got scared. It's now conscious entrance into trance-gravitational mobilization, where your mind, body, nervous system gets aligned and your attention becomes a tool, a laser that you bring in and bring out, focus on, focus off, right? Like a light. if you take a flashlight, a quality of flashlight, it's not only what kind of batteries you have. You can have three double D batteries inside a flashlight, right? But one
Right.
flashlight with the same amount of batteries will have a clarity and depth, and another one will not, even though they are running on the same three batteries, right? It's everything else
Right.
that matters. It's the structure, it's the tightness, it's how they're connected over there. It's how energy, electrons are passed to the light bulb, what kind of light bulb you have, what kind of glass you have, right? Same thing with human. Quality of your body, quality of your nervous system matters. Quality of focus
Hmm.
matters. And that's what we train, is to transform that capability. So it's not wishy-washy.
Understood. Awesome. Let's see. What else I got for you? Um, I guess I was getting ahead of myself in this question because we kind of start going into it later in what I was reading, but
Uh-huh.
on page 30, it says the point necessary to remember the growth memory of the entire organism is preserved within the human, and an opportunity to turn on this memory for further evolution also remains. If there is an ability to get this memory back, then you can return youth to yourself while preserving the experience that was accumulated. I guess what is necessary to achieve or access this memory? And I think later on, I think on page 38, it kind of lists those 5 things that kind of you need to happen all at the same time to have that evolutionary trance jump.
Yeah, the basics of competitive success. So yeah, this is good question. This comes to a question where Homo sapien can go, in which direction. There are currently multiple visions for Homo sapien. I'm reading this book, you may have seen it on my posts. It's called The Revolt Against Humanity. Imagine a future without us. So I picked it up because it's an interesting book. It just happened to be the topic that he's covering is the topic that I care. And in his introduction, he's summarizing different levels of vision for humanity at this point, different movements. There is a movement of transhumanism, where we transact outside of the human, beyond human, with technology and gene engineering and code editing and AI, right? There is in this particular movement, eventually a human can get downgraded because someone more omnipowerful will come and solve all of our problems and downgrade us more to an animal status, right? And they may choose to say, hey, this particular species is not good for Earth, and
Oh,
remove
geez.
from Earth fully. And then there is another movement, and it's called Anthropocene anti-humanism. And in this movement, um, people saying, hey, we overstepped our boundaries. We have mistreated the earth and the living system. And there is a price to pay. There is a moment of reckoning that's coming. And you know what? We should welcome it. A moment where we will be passed off. This is good for environment. So it's an anti-humanism movement. And then there is a movement called environmentalist. And an environmentalist, they're part of this Meliorism movement, where they're saying, let's invest our intellect and intelligence and continue to transform the world for betterment of the human, but do it more rationally, more effectively, so we can prolong our dominance on the earth. What's interesting, it's just an extension of Homo sapiens. The other two movements, the anti-humanism and transhumanism, and this guy kind of put it together pretty well, and I'm quoting over here, the anti-humanism future and transhumanist future are opposite in most ways, except the most fundamental. They are worlds from which we, as Homo sapiens, have disappeared, and rightfully so. So this is different types of worldviews right now that are going through different types of people in different layers of society. What he's saying, this author, is that, look, we have to understand this, because if we don't understand this, there is a consequences. However, all of these ideas, anti-humanism and transhumanism, and a lot of people right now investing into robotics, ability to get out and capture our memory, right, load it into artificial environment and so on. So what this guy is saying, and that's pretty important, it is because the revolt against humanity speaks to such deep needs that it has the potential to transform the real world of politics and society, culture and business in a way that he will expose later in the chapter. And what 21st century has taught us, anything so far, is that ideas that once seemed unserious and out of bounds have the power to change the world. So right now, our humans, our future generations have two choices: extinction, because we have mistreated anti-humanism movement, right? And anti-humanism movement where we get ourselves out of this world, even with an environmental, just an extension. But at the end, there is an extension. And transhumanism then goes beyond. But still, Homo sapien does not exist. Not only as a primary concept, but eventually at all. So what Practice HORA gives as a movement, and this is what I appreciated, Gabe, because I always studied science. I studied biology, chemistry, economics, and I always read scientific books and sci-fi. What was good for me as I was looking into Practice HORA is this concept that there is alternative way, where it does not require for a human to become a machine. And what you were quoting on point necessary to remember, the growth of memory. The entire organism is preserved within a human. An opportunity to turn on this memory for further evolution also remains. Mr. HORA will talk later on about trance-gravitational jump and the concept of entering and discovering the new environment, the gravitational environment. So only human has an opportunity to exit from the long-lasting evolution and consciously make evolutionary jump, to open the new page in constitution of nature. So Mr. HORA talks about a conscious, directed evolutionary transformation of a Homo sapien into next step, versus the two movements that I just covered, transhumanism and anti-humanism. And he's talking about a need to discover and enter eventually into this concept called trance-gravitational environment. I think on page 47, gravitational attention and gravitational concentration. So he's introducing this new principles because attention always was the driver of evolution. It was a slower evolutionary transformation of all species, but it's the attention that helped for us to evolve our physical structure and our operational system of all species. And every time, Gabe, when we conquered an element, there was a transformation of our capabilities. From water to earth, we, as a species, not just Homo sapiens, as a species. When we entered from water to earth, some of us developed lungs. You now can breathe air. You went from gills to lungs. Conquering water was also an obstacle where first it was immovable element, whatever this algae, and then it got into movement. Then it got into ability to sense other species, to hunt or to run away and so on. Then it got vision. Eyes got developed in water. So you can deal with an obstacle as needed. So as we conquer that, there was a transformation of species. All that evolution stuff happened in ocean. Once we got into Earth, new evolution, new branch of evolution opened up, lungs, right? For some of us, ability to process oxygen by whatever means, from insects to whales to birds and so on. Then we also conquered this thing called fire. It is us, the humans, who conquered fire, and you and I enjoy deep REM sleep. And the frontal lobe over here is because suddenly we could sleep without a need to be always in a wake zone, because you can light the fire and no animal will come close to you. It transformed our biological capabilities, our structure. Same thing when we conquer agriculture as a humans now, right? It started changing our skeletal system changed as we conquered agriculture, conquering Earth. We are taller now, we are bigger now than other species, even our ancestors, because we have appropriate need of nutrition. Our ancestors figured out how to eat everything: the roots, the trees, the fruits, the animal, the fish in the water, and so on. Ability to eat roots, like carrots, potatoes, right? Those are extremely energetic sources of life. So our ancestors figured this thing out, right? You start having more resources to direct your attention. But as a humans, we conquer, obviously, air as well. We now go to space, we fly, and so on. We understand the laws of physics at this point. But what Master HORA talks about as a next evolutionary step, conscious next evolutionary step, is gravitational environment, gravitational attention, where things are interconnected, significantly different. It's a next element that we haven't conquered. We all subjected to gravity. Everything is, right?
Right, yeah.
But we haven't been able to use this medium more efficiently and effectively. And some of our science goes there into quantum mechanics. In fact, your car, my car, airplanes, they all designed with the idea of lift, right? Or not lift, so your car doesn't fly off. Cars like Bugatti, depending on the speed, will change their center of weight. So what Master HORA says on page 47, gravitational space for human life is the same as the air environment for fish. We can get to that next level where gravitation for us is different. And a few lines above about the jump into different environment of elements in which the whole world exists and doesn't know about it. Only human beings are capable of uniting with gravity, the source of universal life, the universal space of life. So it's a different direction than transhumanism or anti-humanism. Different transformation, because one of them is full extinction, right? Anti-humanism, just an extinction on species. You got where you got, and now everything is down the hill, right? Because you continue to abuse stuff. You're lucky if environmentalism takes hold and you can extend transhumanism and code gene editing and merging yourself with cyborg and everything else is getting out of Homo sapien and transforming to something else. So Trance-gravitaneer and gravitaneer as a concept. Trance-gravitaneer is a transitional state where a human already can enter into the gravitational environment and stay there, but you still have human qualities of human. Yet you start transforming your capabilities, just like fire transformed our structure of our brain. You now have RAM. You can memorize stuff. The only reason you can learn stuff now is because during sleep there is a compactment of memory and experience that happens on a neuronal level. Neurons write information. So fire helped us to transform our ability to memory. Yes. So imagine.
Interesting.
Yes. Imagine if you can free the brain capacity of neurons and move them away from just trying to balance you out in a space. Because 50% of your cerebellum over here dedicated to balancing you out. A lot of capacity of your brain is there. And I think Master HORA talks about a building on page 49. Imagine the person is 100-story building that constantly shakes and bounces. That's how we walk and sit. All 100 floors are oversupplied with multi-level systems of gyroscope. Need to balance out. I just talked about cerebellum. Need to compensate for swinging of the building so it doesn't collapse, and you have to move 2 feet, move with hands. It's a huge system. We haven't been able to program this in many robots for a while and still don't to the same extent. And this is what happens inside of your dashboard, right? Every millisecond. So all 100 floors are oversupplied with multi-level system of gyroscope needed to compensate for swinging of the buildings. The gravitational transformation modernizes all of this complex system so that it only needs 1 floor from 100. Then the other 99 floors in a human will be released. And then interrelated coordinates between the brain, body, and nervous system will change. The brain space and the body space will be freed. The nervous system will become pliable. So it's freeing up resources so you can do and transform. Like in a computer, we try to free up spool space, temporary space, right? We try to calculate stuff in RAMs versus hard drive that's constantly spinning on so many RPMs per minute. We're trying to have parallel processors. We have 7 cores or 9 cores right now. All of this to process information more effectively and efficiently so you can coordinate a complex environment. You as a human already now coordinating an extremely complex environment, and it takes a lot of portion of your brain power. Your nervous system, right? Your brain is not only here. Your brain actually goes all the way to a tailbone. Your bone marrow, right? If you think about the skeletal structure, your head, the skull, right, and the brain inside of it, it has a connection all the way through your spine to a tailbone, and it also has a gray matter over there, right? That's where eventually nervous system comes out as a senses. That's still your extension of brain. So this ability to free up space so you don't have to over coordinate your presence where you at, your gyroscopes, where you can turn them off. So imagine in this concept of an example of the buildings, 100 gyroscopes, they all require vitality and resource. They require wires, they require ability to find gravity to process the stuff, to transfer electricity so it's running. It requires maintenance, it requires signaling back.
Right.
So imagine suddenly you don't need to support 100 gyroscopes. You need to support only one. And you have all that excess capacity. That's what pliability in a business and environment is, right? Where you have resources to move, multitasking, and you can do it effectively and efficiently without burning out because you're no longer supporting freaking 100 gyroscopes.
Interesting.
You support less. And so your inexhaustibility comes from the fact that you change the curve of operation. Your marginal cost, if you remember economics, there is marginal cost, right? There is utility curves. Your operation is significantly different on the utility curve or marginal cost. So, and this is what gravitational attention allows you to do. It allows you to switch off 99 out of 100 gyroscopes. So just following through, next step is gravitational attention. In the gravitational field of Earth is also fluctuating. But unlike the usual attention, there is compensation of fluctuation with the help of stabilizer and a live gravitational center. The brain is constantly occupied with creation of stable picture of the world. A lot of our resources goes there. Coordination of the body, your inner eye within development stable picture. Where are you in relationship to everything else? So there is a lot of algorithms that are running in you, and then it makes a lot of assumption, right? We don't see the world truly what it is. Our vision and our brain jumps into estimate. It estimates what you see in front of you. It kind of fill in the blanks. Yeah. Number 3 is management of concentration of energy. When there is a need for concentration on an object, energy for this purpose is absorbed from a system of stabilization, your inner eye and the world. A reduction of fluctuation within attention releases huge space in a brain and body. This is transformation. This is trance-gravitational. This is trance-gravitaneer. As a concept, that's what gravitaneer directionally is. Humans, like all other creatures, are focused by nature on expansion of living space. Trance-gravitational changes give unique opportunity for expansion of living space, not by animal principles of unconscious evolution, but by the spiritual principles of conscious evolution. A gravitationally transformed person starts mastering the new gravitational environment and space. And this space of the universe is constantly expanding. I just want for you to stop for a second and imagine a string of DNA. It's tough to imagine, but you might remember, it's invisible. Well, a 2 pounds of string of DNA currently can record the information of Congress of Library, US Congress Library, which is huge. It takes only 2 pounds, 1 kilogram, to record all of that information in all of those books and records. Okay, that's memory. Your DNA is memory. What you pass eventually to your next generation is made out of encoding of memory. The free space in the brain is necessary for a human to master gravitational space environment. You need to free it up so you can continue to master it. Otherwise, your attention not have processing capabilities. It's just like taking a visual graphics from a Intel 9 core and try to put it into Pentium. right? It won't work. Pentium computers, those are 1990 computers. These are the doors to the new world, because the world will change. It's the world of the future, which has been intuitively expected by people throughout the millennia. It already came by itself, knocked at your door. Everything will change, both in education, science, and technology, and in the sources of energy, religion, worldly value, management, and relationships. A gravitationally transformed person will have different type of hand, different wrist, different fingers, different hand grab, and the world will change to suit this hand. So when you ask me about the memory, and I gave you an example of DNA, your neurons constantly record information, constantly. And so going back to your page 30, the question, point necessary to remember. The growth memory of entire organism is preserved within human, which is covered the DNA, just as an example, except it has significantly more than just the size of US Congress library, right? The size of information.
Mm-hmm.
And an opportunity to turn on this memory for further evolution also remains. Ability to access what has been recorded. That requires different ability to read what's been recorded. Again, as analogy in computers, floppy disk, hard disks, CD,
Okay. Yeah.
drives, right? In RAM memory. That's just an example.
Gotcha.
So there is a guy, Michael Polanyi. He talks about evolution and the complexity of orders. And at one point, there is a concept of emergence. Emergence is a next state which has characteristics of previous state. You can understand and read previous states. However, the previous states cannot read this new emergence state. It doesn't have the skill set or ability to recognize it. So trance immersion, what he's talking about over here, and stabilized and active alive gravitational center, it's what we train. Different interconnection between mind, body, and nervous system, different structure, different collection of your resourceful state, different ability to manage your environmental and objective attention, hence different human capability. That's why it's trance-gravitational, it's Trance-gravitaneer. For a long time, we couldn't figure out how do we call a next human, right? If you look at history of Homo species, there's Neanderthals, Denisovans, and then there's a bunch of Homo dash something. Homo sapien, sapien means thinking, right? Thinking man. How do you call that next transition? So the founder of the system, Alexander Atayan, right, who we refer to as Master HORA, gave a name. It's a gravitaneer. What Trance-gravitaneer, right, is that next transformative change where you starting to operate already within gravitational senses. You train them, you learn them, you activate them. And we just wrote over here this Adam Kirsch, right, when he was saying this transhumanism or anti-humanism can change politics, society, culture, and business, right? As transhumanism becomes a movement, there is so many science books that are written about transfer of memory, right? Transfer of memory from into machines. Then if that becomes the way of living, then you start figuring out where is human, who is human, and did he or she really die, or did they just transfer their conscious, and is consciousness going to be the human right now because you have all that memory.
Yeah.
So it will transform our privacy. It will transform our definition into reaction. That's an example if transhumanism takes on, there is a cryonic investments. All of the top wealthy individuals, they investing in the life extension techniques and life transfer techniques. So it will change rights. It will change our definitions, right? It might be persons, and it may be parenthesis, organic or inorganic. As long as that inorganic has a memory. And so environmentalism, which is a movement, is trying to extend Homo sapien dominance. One is trying to downgrade and say we just need to accept this. Those things are also changing our policies, our education. We all right now care about environment. Our large companies that are traded, public companies now have to report their behavior on environmental ESG, right? It's now part of annual reports, part of quarterly deliverables, right? Because that's where those movements, when environmentalism came out in the 1960s, it was a nascent idea. It was, as this author talks about, an out-of-bound, once seemed unserious idea, changing our presence. You and I are living in a transformational world by a person who wrote a book. And I remember that book called Silent Spring. Her name is Raquel Carsons. She is the mother of environmental movement. If you want to check it out, Silent Spring. She started raising those questions. But you and I right now have those concepts of carbon credits, which did not exist before. We now have an Energy Star. We now have rebates for some of the stuff. Here is a change in policy and business practices. So depending which idea comes to the top will make a difference for our next generation. I would like for my next generation not to be cyborgs. Imagine going and funding now instead of car, you're now going to be borrowing parts, right, on lease. So Homo Deus, that is written by Yevgeny, that's not the world that I want to be in, where your happiness is managed by chemicals, where they look at your DNA and say, hey, here's a happy pill for you personally, right? Or if you want to be great surgeon, you need to have 3 arms.
Interesting.
That's not the world that I want to be living in. So for me, an evolutionary transformation, conscious evolutionary transformation of Homo sapien, a human, is much more attractive than a transhumanism or anti-human. I want to choose a future where there is a different capabilities for us as a human. And it deals with releasing resources so your body can use them for different purposes. Ability to read what's inside of your memory that you accumulate, ability to use that, record, write, and deliberately move with it. So it may be a little bit long answer, but that's what we eventually train. Practice HORA does give all the benefits of vitality, feeling lightness, feeling alive, being useful, being, more purposeful, more pliable, and so on. Yet at its core, it's a path, a method, how to, and teaching how to control evolutionary transformation that is more sustainable, more effective, and more beneficial to life. And life is bigger than just life on Earth, right? To life, ability to enter and live and work in gravitational state, because gravity is the only medium that unites everything in a universe, living and non-living. There is no other force that unite this thing. Every single thing, the things we don't see on the smaller things and the things that we cannot imagine has a gravitational center. You take a molecule, H2O will have a gravitational center. A hydrogen will have gravitational center. You take an elephant will have gravitational center. A building, gravitational center. Car, gravitational center. Things that we have created. Mountains, everything. Earth, gravitational center. Our solar system has gravitational center. Milky Way has gravitational center. And everything is connected through one force. Quantum mechanics and quantum entanglement is our way to kind of start thinking through it along the way. And we can cover it at one point this as well. One of our next topics could be, what is immortality? Because transhumanism is going after immortality. Environmentalism is also in one form immortality, right, of a Homo sapiens. That's a topic we can consider on the next stage. But everything is in gravity. Everything is gravity. And so ability to submerge and live and read and extract information. It's a different level of conscious existence. That's why it's Trance-gravitational.
Understood.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. It's a big topic, I think.
I'll let that sit with me.
Powerful topic along the way, but that's transformation on body structure and so on.
It's awesome stuff.
Yeah. So what do you say for today? I think this is good.
I think we're good. Yeah, I'm gonna let that sit with me. But yeah, let's continue the conversation next time.
Okay. Prepare questions for next one.
I will.
Okay. I'll talk to you soon.
Thank you for your time.
Bye.
Peace. Bye.
From the beginning, evolution of space, evolution of the sun, Earth, evolution of life on Earth is united in a single whole by a live gravitational interconnection. Practice HORA is the exit from evolutionary dead end. The next evolutionary step of humankind, a human will make consciously. Master HORA.